Alright, what's up everybody? Welcome back. This is the first half of the last tier in the Ancient Mysteries Iceberg. So if you haven't checked out the other parts, I'll make sure I link the whole playlist below. Other than that, make sure that you like, subscribe, and all the other YouTube stuff. Other than that, I'm about to just hop right into it. So first up is Adam's Calendar. Known by African elders as the birthplace of the sun, or Inzalo Ilangwa, and dubbed Africa's Stonehenge, the site was first brought to public attention in 2003 by a South African pilot, Johan Heine. He had been flying over the mountains of South Africa for over 20 years and took interest in the thousands of strange circular stone objects scattered throughout the region and began photographing them. An air crash involving one of his crew brought Johan to discover the mysterious monolithic circle by accident. En route to find one of his pilots who crashed his plane, Johan noticed an arrangement of large stones sticking out of the ground next to the crash site. While rescuing the injured pilot down the side of the cliff, Johan walked over to the monoliths and realized there were lines at the cardinal points: north, south, east, and west, as well as the equinoxes and solstices. There were at least 3 monoliths aligned towards the sunrise, but on the west side of the aligned monoliths there was a strange hole in the ground. After weeks and months of measuring and making observations, Johan suspected that it was a stone calendar. The first calculations of the age of the calendar were made based on the rise of Orion, a constellation known for its 3 bright stars forming the belt of the mythical hunter. The Earth wobbles on its axis, so the stars and constellations change their angle of presentation in the night sky on a cyclical basis. This rotation, called the precession, completes a cycle about every 26,000 years. By determining when the 3 stars of Orion's belt were positioned flat against the horizon, it is possible to estimate the time when the 3 stones in the calendar were in alignment with these stars. According to Tellinger, a calculation done by astronomer Bill Holenbach based on the rise of Orion suggested an age of the site at least 75,000 years. A further calculation done in June 2009 suggests an age of at least 160,000 years, based on the rise of Orion's flat on the horizon, but also on the erosion of the dolerite stones found at the site. Some pieces of the marker stones had been broken off and sat on the ground exposed to natural erosion, which you already know takes a long time. When the pieces were put back together, about 3 centimeters of stone had already been worn away. These calculations helped assess the age of the site by calculating the erosion rate of the dolerite. The latest and most interesting discovery of the stone circles in Adam's calendar is the sound frequencies of the rock formations from actually below the earth beneath them. With modern technology, Tellinger and scientists have been able to detect and measure sound frequencies with acoustic properties made from the earth inside the circles, which conduct electricity. Alright, so sounds weird already, but listen to this. These sound frequencies of the earth under the stones are shaped as flowers of sacred geometry as they surface to the ground. So basically, as the sound waves move closer to the surface, they end up becoming the shape of flowers of sacred geometry. There is still a ton that's not known about Adam's calendar though, like who built it, what their civilization was even like, and how they constructed it with these crazy precise measurements. So hopefully one day we'll figure out more about Adam's calendar, because I think that's super interesting. But we're moving on to the next one. I spent long enough on that. So up next is the Baigong Pipes. Local legend speculates that Mount Baigong in the Qinghai province of China is an ancient extraterrestrial laboratory. Aside from the mysterious pyramid that crowns the mountain, 3 triangular entrances at the mountain's base leads the way to hundreds of decrepit metal pipe-like structures of unknown origin. The rusty tubes, ranging from needle size to 16 inches in diameter, reach from deep inside the mountain to a saltwater lake 260 feet away. Many of the hollow pipes are uniform in size and seem to be placed purposefully. The ancient objects are embedded deep enough into the mountain wall and floor to basically be way earlier than any modern human handling. The inhospitable environment surrounding the mountain sees only the occasional nomad. Unless these wanderers developed secret metallurgy skills, these pipes were not formed by human hands. The first scientists to examine the subterranean phenomenon concluded that the pipes were composed of 92% common materials, like minerals and metals, and 8% unknown materials, which they basically took to mean that the 8% of unknown materials were actually transported here from outer space as part of an alien public works program, project, whatever, but that was what they were thinking, these original scientists. Now, the ancient alien idea got so much support that they actually ended up building a monument topped off with a corroded satellite dish, and they put it up near the mountain. The most recent researchers to examine the pipes believe that the metallic phenomena is in fact fossilized tree roots. The rusted tubes being the result of tree roots that underwent the process of pedogenesis, which is the process that forms soil, and diagenesis, which transforms soil into rock. And finally, after doing a bunch of further experiments, they actually confirmed that the pipes contain organic plant material and even microscopic tree rings. And the leading theory is that overflow from an extinct lake once carried these roots to basically where they are now, and that's where they stayed. So we're moving on to the next one. Up next is human-made ditches in the Amazon rainforest. And in 2014, a study published in the journal Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences revealed that a series of mysterious lines and geometric shapes carved into the Amazonian landscape were created thousands of years ago, before the rainforest even ever existed. Now, the purpose of these massive earthworks and who created them still is unknown, and scientists are beginning to realize just how much there still is to learn about the prehistoric cultures of the Amazon and life before the arrival of the Europeans. Because apparently we weren't looking into anything like that. I didn't even realize that, but anyways, the unusual earthworks, which include square, straight, and ring-like ditches, were first uncovered in 1999 after a large area of pristine forest was cleared for cattle grazing. Since then, hundreds of earthen foundations have been found in the region. These ditches were sculpted from the clay-rich soils of the Amazon and are typically around 30 feet wide and 10 feet deep, along with 3-foot-high walls. However, the largest ring ditches found so far are an incredible 1,000 feet in diameter. The purpose of the ditches is still a complete mystery though. The fact that many of them are clustered on a 200-meter high plateau suggests that they may have been used for defense. However, others have suggested that they were used for drainage or for channeling water, since most were placed near spring water sources. A team of researchers who published a paper in the journal Antiquity in 2010 argued that the layout of the ditches is highly symbolic, suggestion of a ceremonial or a religious function. And until recently, it was believed that the earthworks dated back to only around 200 AD. However, the latest study has revealed that they are in fact much older. Study author John Francis Carson, a postdoctoral researcher at the University of Reading in the United Kingdom, explained that the sediment cores had been taken from 2 lakes near the major earthwork sites. Now, the results revealed that the oldest sediments did not even come from a rainforest ecosystem at all. In fact, they actually showed that the landscape before about 2,000 to 3,000 years ago looked more like the savannas of Africa than today's lush rainforest. The earthworks predate the shift from savanna to rainforest, which revealed that the creators of these ditches carved them before the forest moved in around them. So basically, the people that carved these things had never even known that this place became the Amazon rainforest. They were doing this thousands of years before this thing even showed up, which blows my mind, to be honest, because they missed out at the end of the day. If they were chilling in the savannah and you missed out on the whole rainforest, that sucks. I can't even lie, that kind of sucks in my mind, but we're moving on to the next thing. Okay, so up next is the Rujm el-Hiri. This is the largest ancient megalithic monument in the Near East, located about 10 miles east of the Sea of Galilee in the western part of the historical Bashan plain of the Golan Heights, which is basically, it's a contested area that's claimed both by Syria and Israel. So Rujm el-Hiri is believed to function at least partially as an astronomical observatory. Built and used during the late Chalcolithic and early Bronze Age between 5,500 and 5,000 years ago, Rujm el-Hiri is made out of an estimated 40,000 tons of uncut black volcanic basalt fieldstones, piled and wedged into between 5 and 9 concentric rings, depending on how you count them. Some people see less, some people see more. And they all are reaching 3 to 5 feet in height. More recent and extensive studies were carried on at the site in the 21st century and reported by Michael Freichman and Naomi Porritt. These investigations, which included a landscape survey of sites and features within 5 kilometers of the site, identified a dense Chalcolithic occupation of some 2,000 people in 50 settlements. At the time, there was a crescent-shaped row of houses surrounding the Rujm el-Hiri, but none were within the immediate vicinity of the monument. Now, with optically stimulated luminescent dating, or OSL for short, they used this, and basically this supports the new date, with dates falling between the mid-3rd to early 4th millennial BC. Freichman and Porritt have discovered a small, irregularly shaped opening in the wall of the central cairn that, on the solstice, would have allowed the sun's rays to enter and strike the large flat stone at the entrance of the central chamber. And the team also suggests that the original construction may predate the end of the 5th millennium, or somewhere from 5000 BC to 4001 BC. And that's basically all the information I could find on the Rujm el-Hiri. If you can find anything else, or if you know anything else, I couldn't find literally anything. So if you can find anything, link it below, let me know. Other than that, I'm moving on to the next thing though. Next up is structure under the Sea of Galilee. A giant monumental stone structure discovered beneath the waters of the Sea of Galilee in Israel has archaeologists puzzled as to its purpose and even how long ago it was built. The mysterious structure is cone-shaped, made of unhewn basalt cobbles and boulders, and weighs an estimated 60,000 tons. The researchers say that this makes it heavier than most modern-day warships. The structure was first detected in the summer of 2003 during a sonar survey of the southwest portion of the sea. Divers have since been down to investigate. They say that it's definitely human-made and was probably built on land, only later to be covered by the Sea of Galilee as the water level rose. The shape and composition of this submerged structure does not resemble any natural feature. We therefore conclude that it is man-made and might be termed a cairn. That's exactly what these divers said when they went down and looked into it, researched it. Researcher Yitzhak Paz of the Israeli Antiquities Authority and Ben-Gurion University believes it could date back more than 4,000 years. If the 3rd millennium BC date idea proves to be correct, it would put the structure about a mile to the north of a city that researchers called Bet Yura or Khirbet Karak. I messed those names up. I'm sorry. I even tried Google Translate. I still couldn't understand it, how to say it, but anyways. Basically, they're trying to connect it because if they are around the same date, it would make sense that they are close cities because it would have been also like another city that would have traded with them, all that stuff. But since it's underwater and they don't know any of this, there are basically still a bunch of mysteries for it. So I'm moving on to the next thing. If you know any extra information, if you can find anything, please link it down below. Let me know because I'm still interested in finding all this stuff out. But anyways, I'm moving on to the next one. All right, up next is the Tophet at Carthage. Tophets are at the center of one of the most contentious archaeological debates surrounding the region of northern Africa that was once part of the ancient Carthaginian Empire. The word Tophet comes from a place described in Hebrew scripture where people who were influenced by the ancient Canaanite religion burned and sacrificed children to their gods. It's also another term for hell. The enigmatic ancient cemeteries are believed to have been used for the ritual sacrifice of children and animals. The burial site at Carthage in Tunisia, as well as others in the region, were discovered in the 20th century. It, along with the others, contained funerary urns stuffed with the cremated ashes and bone fragments of young children. Over 20,000 urns buried under the stelae, which are stone slabs with inscriptions, were found at the Tophet in Carthage, which is one of the largest cemeteries from the Phoenician period. These findings and subsequent research, which included referencing accounts in ancient texts, propelled the theory that infants were sacrificed and cremated as part of the ritual to give thanks for favors from deities, mainly the goddess Tanit and the god Baal, which of course a dude named Baal or a god named Balls is literally the guy that wants children. Like, come on, dude, like, that's crazy.
It is not pronounced Baal, it is pronounced Baal. As in, the Baal from the Old Testament.
For many years, the rumors that the ancient Carthaginians had sacrificed their own young was considered to be propaganda spread by the Greeks and Romans, who disliked them and the wider Phoenician civilization. Over the decades, several groups of historians have debated the subject, but they have yet to reach a concrete answer. Most recently, a team led by an Oxford historian ruled that there was strong evidence that the ritual sacrifices did in fact take place. This wasn't even just an isolated incident either. It actually was happening over several different centuries. And today, the tombstones and the ritual altars form part of a historical site outside of the capital city of Tunis, which was granted World Heritage status in 1979. So I'm pretty sure you can actually go and visit this place. But I don't know, that's a pretty depressing place to go visit. I'm not even gonna lie, man, I don't know. Up next is why the Cucuteni-Trypillia cultures burn their houses down. The Cucuteni-Trypillia culture is believed to have existed for about 2,750 years. During these years, they were fairly static and stable, occupying a vast area of nearly 350,000 square kilometers with their densely populated settlements. In terms of agriculture, the Cucuteni-Trypillia culture was very advanced for the Neolithic era. They harvested and planted wheat, peas, legumes, and barley, harvested crops, cultivating the soil, and tended livestock was probably the main occupation of a majority of the people during this time and in this culture. The surviving evidence suggests that every household had members in the family who would go to the fields in order to raise crops. However, there were also hunter-gatherers and would hunt animals in the dense forests of the region. In addition to the agricultural work, the Cucuteni-Trypillia culture also created pottery and textiles. According to the archaeological evidence, they possessed excellent skills in pottery making. They worked with the clay in order to create statues, pottery, and other popular figures. They were also proficient in crafting hooks and jewelry pieces from copper. One of the most interesting yet mysterious aspects of the Cucuteni-Trypillia culture is the manner in which they treated their structures and settlements. These were not simply dwellings, but sophisticated multi-story buildings constructed using wood. A number of temples, individual dwellings, and public structures have been discovered, all of which were well constructed and shows evidence of sophisticated planning. These were Europe's first cities, built before the great civilizations of the Bronze Age, Mediterranean, and Middle East, and between 4000 and 3500 BC held up to 50,000 people. However, the Cucuteni-Trypillia saw these as temporary structures, and throughout their long history, their cities were ritualistically burned down to the ground every 60 to 80 years before relocating and rebuilding. There are a number of theories relating to the repeating burning of the settlements. One theory suggests that the homes were burnt accidentally, which to me makes no sense because we already went over the fact that they've been burned every 60 to 80 years. Evidence shows that there's multiple structures being built on top of each other. So how many accidents do they think that this is actually happening? Like, how many times do they think an accident happens until it's like, all right, no, they're doing this on purpose? I mean, if it's happening every 60 to 80 years, I would just assume like this is just something that they do, but it makes sense that it was just a ritual, something that they did just as a culture in general, because clearly this was no accident. It wasn't just something that they burned down every 60 to 80 years, like, fuck, we had another accident. You know what I mean? Like, clearly this was on purpose. So do I know the purpose? No, but I mean, I don't know. To me, it's easy to see that because I feel like they're smart enough to figure out all this agriculture stuff. Why wouldn't they be figure out enough? Why wouldn't they figure out a way just to not burn down their houses? You know what I mean? I don't know. But we're moving on to the next thing. Up next is Atlantis of the Sands. It is also referred to as Ubar by the Bedouins, who are the people of the desert, and as Iram in the Quran. So if you hear any of those names, it's all talking about the same place, the Atlantis of the Sands. It is one of the most mysterious and intriguing legendary lost cities, reputed to have once been a magnificent and prosperous trading post. The city may have been founded as early as 3000 BCE and may have perished between 300 and 100 CE. Herodotus, Pliny the Elder, Strabo, and other ancient authors, though not specifically mentioning Ubar, gave brief accounts of cities in southern Arabia that marketed resins from frankincense and mercuries. It was perfectly located in southern Arabia between India and the Mediterranean, directly on the trade route, and merchants used that route to transport fine spices and highly valuable resins and essential oils for sale. The Atlantis of the Sands may have been popular trading and stopping point, and thus wary travelers could water their camels and stock up on goods and commodities. It has never been conclusively discovered, but this grand place may have been inspired by a real-life city that once existed. Bertram Thomas was one such explorer of southern Arabia who had heard great tales about the lost city from his Bedouin guides on various expeditions. In 1930, he set out to locate Ubar. Thomas was told by his guides that it was dangerous to attempt to search for Ubar because it had met its fate as a result of wickedness. Thomas persisted in his explorations anyways, but he died before having a chance to find it. He left behind a book he wrote in 1932 called Arabia Felix. In his book, he described the people of the region and the place called Ubar. Thomas said that he had found traces of the lost city and well-worn tracks that had been used to get there. Thomas's book inspired Nicholas Clapp, and consequently his research led him to a city mentioned in the Quran. That city, called the Iram of Pillars, sounded very familiar to Ubar. In addition, he looked at old maps, primarily one drawn by Ptolemy in 200 AD. Clapp also used satellite images taken by NASA that revealed camel tracks leading to a place called Shazar. Many people now call this Shazar Ubar. They began excavations where the tracks converged on the satellite image, which led to an interesting find. The team discovered a well and nearby a large octagonal fortress with tall towers and high walls. Unfortunately, a large part of the fort had collapsed into a sinkhole, therefore they were unable to excavate a significant area. It is unknown if this fortress may have been an outpost for a larger settlement. It is possible that this amazing place only existed in stories of the Iram in the Quran and in the minds of the Bedouins. However, it seems more likely that folktales are based on a real place that actually did exist in the once prosperous region. And interestingly enough, the story of Iram says that it suffered a terrible sandstorm for 7 days that covered the city. And basically, a lot of people kind of put this together and think that Shazar Ubar is actually the Iram from the Quran and the Atlantis of the Sands, because basically a large sinkhole that buried this city sounds really close to basically this, you know what I mean? Like nobody can obviously conclusively say that it is this unless they excavate that area, but it's pretty close, you know what I mean? I mean, sandstorm covering this place in 7 days, or a giant sinkhole just opening up and eating it. I mean, back then they probably wouldn't even know what a sinkhole was at the end of the day. But anyways, moving on, we got 2 more left for this half and then doing the rest next week. Alright, we made it to my favorite one of this video, the Cannabis burial shroud in China.
Why am I not surprised?
Obviously, if y'all know me from the other videos, you clearly know why I like this one, but let's get into it. A team of archaeologists led by Hongjian Zhang with the University of Chinese Academy of Sciences working in the Turpan Basin in the northwest part of China has unearthed the skeleton of a man who died between 2500 and 2800 years ago and was covered with a cannabis shroud when he was buried. Basically, they must have found me in a past life at the end of the day. Like, trust me, once we get into this description, you'll understand, like, this might have been me, cause like, I can't even lie to you. Humans have had a long history of using cannabis for a variety of purposes. As hemp, it's been used to make rope and clothes, its seed have been consumed to gain nutrition from the oils that they contain, but perhaps most notoriously, the plant has been burned or eaten to obviously get high or feel a feeling of euphoria. In this new find, it appears that the plant may have been used as part of a burial ritual. The skeleton has been identified as once belonging to a Caucasian man, approximately 35 years old at the time of his death. And listen, I'm not close to 35, but I mean, if you could see the skin tone, clearly I'm a Caucasian man at the end of the day. I don't know really what I believe in, but listen, if it was anybody in the past life, this was me, my guy. Now, those that had buried him had placed a willow pillow underneath his head and then had placed a shroud of 13 cannabis plants over his chest, reaching from below his pelvis at one end to the side of his face on the other. So the researchers note that other examples of cannabis use have been found in other nearby graves, but none as shrouds. Mainly they were simply seeds or leaves just tossed in the grave site before burial. Researchers point out that their find is the first to have full cannabis plants and the first time it has ever been seen used as a shroud, like I just said. They believe the inclusion of the whole plant suggests that the plants were grown locally. Also, the ripeness of the heads suggested that they had been harvested and buried in the later part of the summer. And because the heads were covered in glandular trichomes, which contain THC, the active ingredient in such plants, they believed that they were getting high with these things, basically. You know what I mean? Like, they were definitely smoking. They were letting these things grow all the way. They weren't just using it for the hemp. They were growing these things fully out, and they were using them. You know what I mean? Anyways, we got 1 more left on this half, and then done. Last up for this half is liquid mercury in Teotihuacan. And don't even get mad at me if I say this wrong, because I got Google Translate right here telling me this is how it's said. Teotihuacan, so there it is.
Together, this name is Teotihuacan.
Teotihuacan.
Why, God? Why?
Teotihuacan, the great city of the Mesoamericans in Mexico, has long fascinated archaeologists and researchers. The largest pre-Columbian city in the Americas for 500 years, maybe 120,000 people lived in this great metropolis, built around the central famous Avenue of the Dead. 3 great pyramids link the avenue: the Pyramid of the Sun, the Moon, and the feathered serpent Quetzalcoatl. Now, this last of the 3 is currently the most archaeologically interesting, and in 2003, 2 archaeologists from Mexico's National Institute of Anthropology and History found a secret tunnel leading under the massive structure. The hidden tunnel had remained in an undisturbed state for about 1800 years. It was the first uncovered by archaeologist Sergio Gomez Chavez after a heavy rainstorm. Days after the heavy rain, Sergio arrived at Teotihuacan and found a 3-foot wide sinkhole at the foot of the Temple of the Feathered Serpent. Gomez took out a flashlight and shined it inside the tunnel. However, he was not able to see anything except for complete darkness. So he decided to actually descend into the tunnel to find out what was inside. He tied a rope around his waist and he started to be lowered in by his colleagues. Gomez came to a rest in the middle of the tunnel and saw that the passage of the tunnel was blocked by huge stones in both directions. So you can imagine he's right here, and both sides he sees giant stones, and he is actually stuck at this point, or he knows that he can't really go any further. He knew that other archaeologists had discovered a narrow tunnel underneath the Pyramid of the Sun previously. So he made an assumption that what he found was a similar structure underneath the Pyramid of the Feathered Serpent. By the beginning of 2004, Gomez had assembled a team of 20 selected workers and archaeologists. Together, the team started to scan the ground beneath the temple, and by 2005, they were successful in completing a digital map. As Gomez had thought, the tunnel ran about 100 meters or 330 feet from the citadel and plaza surrounding the temple to the core of the temple of the feathered serpent. As the Mexican archaeologists began to work in the new tunnel, they discovered thousands of artifacts in 3 distinct underground chambers. The artifacts included boxes of rubber balls and carved shells, jaguar remains, and jade statues in much higher quantities than were found anywhere else throughout the city. But what really surprised the archaeologists the most was the presence of a huge quantity of liquid mercury. Now, mercury is a highly toxic substance that is capable of causing significant damage to the human body when exposed for long periods of time. And according to Gomez, the lake of liquid mercury seems to be a representation or a symbol of an underworld lake or river. Now, Gomez also believed that it was a sign that his team was getting closer to discovering the first royal tomb in Teotihuacan and potentially unearthing the mysteries of the powerful city. Now, Rosemary Joyce, professor of anthropology of the University of California, says that the liquid mercury might have been created by the Mesoamericans with use of the mercury core. In her quote exactly, she says, "They certainly had access to this material, but it was mostly used for coloring the bodies of the royals and decorating jade objects." To compound the mystery, mercury was rare in ancient Mexico. Moreover, the ore was difficult to mine, and the scarcity of it, combined with its reflective properties, made mercury a very valuable substance. The mercury accumulation in Teotihuacan would have been super valuable, and it is believed that the Lake of Mercury did have some ritual or supernatural significance to the people at that time. No royal tombs have been found in the hidden tunnel to this day, and researchers have not been able to identify the purpose of the structure. So there's still a ton of things that we don't know about this entire structure at all. But anyways, my brain is hurt from trying to pronounce all these words. I hope I got some of them right. I got Google Translate right next to me, and I be trying, bro, I promise you. But
you messed up.
Anyways, if you watched the whole thing, I appreciate you. I love you. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you tell a friend to like this. And make sure that you staying dangerous, staying safe, and getting laid, and that's it. I'll be back probably a couple days. I don't know when you'll see this, but I'll be back a few more days with another video. And other than that, yeah, I don't know what I'm gonna do after this iceberg, but I'll find something. So